like to call to order the Planning and Development Committee meeting for September 28, 2022 at 10:32.
Oh.
Are there any late items? Okay, so the agenda recommendation that the Planning and Development Committee meeting agenda for September 28, 2022 be approved or circulated. All in favor? Carried. Adoption of the minutes, approval of the minutes. Recommendation that the minutes of the Planning and Development Committee meeting held on August 24, 2022 be adopted. Any, all in favor? Yep. Carried. Development Services update, Scott.
Yeah, we have just a list of applications. You move it ahead one more. Yeah, you can see the ones that we're considering today. Couple of the regulars still holding on. I believe Todd Kylo is going to come in and speak to 21083 DP for Martin Street today. 1005 Riverside. PDC considered it. That one's kind of on hold. I think the applicants, I haven't heard from the applicants that they pulled out, but I've heard from the owner that they're moving on, and Kevin Bird's going to talk about that property today. His idea on that property. Yeah, then that answer questions about any of the current applications.
Yeah. Any other? Gordon?
That's through the chair. Scott, is we had a conversation with Kelly and yourself last week or week before at Whistler. Any movement? Do we need to reconvene with the group at Old Town Bay, or they need anything?
Yeah, we probably next week we should.
Okay.
They have their zoning in front of us. We're still trying to work out what exactly they'll need to rezone to. We did in the next version of the zoning bylaw, we've captured the RV type campground in that zone. So I think that should make it more clear moving forward for them. But yeah, maybe next week we should we'll sit down with them again.
Okay, and then 2 Mile property with residential subdivision of 14 units, or anything from those guys yet?
Yeah, no, we're like ready to issue the PLR, so it'd be good to go soon. Yeah.
Thank you.
Brian, go ahead.
The reservoir at Old Town Bay, the water reservoir, is that what is that out for tender, or is whose responsibility is it? Is it the developer? Is it town?
I'm not even aware of that.
Okay.
So that'd be Daryl's project, so.
Okay. Okay. That's it.
Deb, you good?
All good.
Okay. That's it for comments on the applications. Are we still 21 to 24 days to issue a permit?
I think we've definitely improved on that. The building official who's in town, and we're doing better than that for sure. I'll get some numbers together though.
Comment?
Yeah, in fact, 2 weeks, we had under 2 weeks last one, so pretty slick compared to other municipalities, so. Better than the CSRD by about 2 months.
Or more.
Or
and how is our new building inspector working out? Because I've kind of heard a couple of little complaints, but it's his job. I'm not stepping on his toes, so.
If you didn't hear complaints about him, he's not doing his job.
Sorry.
You didn't hear complaints about him, he's not doing his job.
Okay. Gordon?
Yeah, no, just through the chair, we had an open house, all of us there the other night, and heard lots of comments from different residents in town or businesses, and I had one gentleman approached me. It was pretty aggressive about our lengthy building permits, and I said, it wasn't a building permit, it was a development permit. Development permits take longer, So yeah, we've accomplished what we wanted on the building permit side and then we'll, I said, we'll look at the development permit and side and everyone's different and takes longer, some takes longer than others. So anyways, he was pretty aggressive, but anyway, there's a difference between a building permit and a development permit.
Any other comments?
Yeah, there's
Go ahead, Brad.
There's also, I think one of the things that happens is when a builder comes into the office, they have all their ducks in a row. They've got their engineering if needed, they've got their truss drawings, they've got things lined up because they've done it before. But when a private citizen comes in, and wants to build a little deck or put a garage up, they're not coming in with that knowledge. And I think they need their handheld. And I think that's probably happening. I don't know, but those are the people I've heard from that have said, oh yeah, it's a nightmare. I said, well, what did you come in with everything they were asking for? And did they tell you what they needed and everything? And, some people just like to bitch too.
So one of the things when we were at UBCM, I went to the very first meeting was housing. And it was to do with the whole process, the process to get housing, the process for affordable housing. That was the mainstay. All four speakers said affordable housing and the BC housing doesn't work. It's a process that's flawed. But the one speaker from Parksville, we actually met with him because he talked about the process. And he said, the problem with it is, like, he actually ran to be the premier against Christie. So I can't remember his name, Edgar. And anyway, he basically said, you have to whip your staff into shape and tell them that they got to get it done. And they have this long to get this done and this long to get this done. And if they don't get it done, they better have a darn good reason why it's not done. He said, that's the only way that you can move the ball forward. He said, so that's what we did in our community. And then we came up with alternative ways to get things done. But he said, we made it a point that if somebody comes in and we know they're not sure, to actually sit down and hold their hand and take them through the process, because that's what we're paying people to do. So he said, and they're less than 14 days. So we're close and we're better than most other communities, but his comments were directly related to, you need to have staff. If council's wishes are to get this stuff approved and that's the direction they want to go, then staff needs to actually follow through on it. He said, unfortunately, that's doesn't happen in a lot of communities. The staff is driving the car, not the council. He said, so if council says their mandate is 2 weeks to get approval done on a regular building permit, then they have to find a way to do that, however it takes.
Yeah, just to add to that, and that was a very important conversation that we had. For us to go through a building permit, 17 pages of documentary here in this office. And what they were able to do is they were able to accomplish the very same thing with 1 page. 1 page. So we've got some work to do in order to improve on that. And based on that in itself, they've been able to actually ramp up, the process in order to get a development or a permit put into place. Okay, so I think that our staff has to take a very serious look at that particular application. 17 pages. 17 pages. It takes, a Philadelphia lawyer to look at this thing and get it all right. And I know it's got to be complicated when it comes to, the planning department as to how we can get this done. But, somebody that doesn't have the experience in a building permit and comes in and has to deal with 17 pages is pretty onerous. Anyway, it needs to be fine tuned.
So I'd like to recommend that staff, Kelly was at the meeting and later that same day, you met with their CAO.
Yeah.
And so Kelly was there and has the information, and I highly recommend that. I mean, it's worth the phone call to find. They already wrote the book 2 or 3 years ago. So, whatever book they wrote seems to pump stuff through in a hurry. And not that we need a lot of stuff, it's just a few little tweaks. Remember, 5 years I've been asking for a page that says what it is you need to do when you want to do this. And I'm not sure if that page exists yet, but we have to simplify it for the average person. So if we can get that done, then I think you're going to be down to 7 days, which you're going to get a big round of applause doing that. So new business. 22279 DP 200 Main Street. Boy, who's got this one?
Yeah, I do. So yeah, this is for development permit for 200 Main Street for the Healing Center. Staff's recommending that the Planning Development Committee forward this to the District Council for a recommendation of approval. Everybody knows where the property is at the end of Main Street on the Riverside. It's in the town center, OCP designation, and a form and character development permit is required. It's zoned C1A right now, the town center commercial residential. The uses proposed is there's offices and professional studios, so we consider this to be a doctor's office. In the new zoning bylaw, we actually created a specific zone for this one, allow for a health center as a permitted use. Here's the site plan that was prepared by Scott Builders and Douglas Cardinal Architects. I believe Brian Marr is on the line if there are any questions. You can see the location of the building and then the parking lot at the east end. There are 42 parking spaces plus the 23 on the road, so there'll be a realignment of the sidewalk. In the development permit area, it requires the avoiding long and continuous blank wall. So this is the design of the building. So yeah, I think it meets that, meets an interesting design. And then it would be covered with a cedar look metal cladding, glass and cultured stone. And then the curving roof line is meant to reflect the mountains, forests, and lakes of the region. Underneath the two at either end, there's kind of like a circular little structure. So that'd be kind of a outdoor amenity space. And then a large portion of the property is also being reserved for other outdoor amenities. Sidewalk all around, trying to maintain as many of the trees as possible. So you can see all the trees that are gray there. I believe most of those are existing trees. So try and maintain the trees as much as possible. Exterior lighting, the lighting is being will be directed down. And then we have that candle foot measurement of lighting to avoid any of the light leading into other properties. But yeah, there's a lot going on here. This is the first step in the development permit. The next step would be building permit, and we'll have a closer look at some of the requirements through the building stage and the services. But yeah, it's one that the community will be happy with, and definitely one that's getting a lot of attention and has received a lot of attention from staff. So staff's recommending that this go to the council with a recommendation of approval.
Deb has comment.
Comments or questions?
Deb has her hand up.
Steffi, go ahead.
Deb has her hand up.
Okay, Deb, go ahead.
Yeah, just a quick question for Scott. You said that
you've developed a new site-specific zone for this property under the new zoning bylaw. I'm assuming that under the old C1, I know we're real close, but are we still okay with this, the current C1 zoning with this as a permitted use?
Yes.
That's what I thought. I just wanted to confirm.
Or do you have a comment?
Through the chair, again, the other night, we had lots of opportunity to talk to the public, and this was one of the main ones on the topic list. And it's I think it's a great project. We've been working on it for 8 years. And we originally purchased 200 Main Street, kept it commercial. We applied for the grant using this address, and yeah, things changed and we looked at other properties. But we're back at this property, and we've got some doctors that are excited about being in our community, and they see the future of this facility, and it will also bring in more desired doctors that might want to work in our building. So I think it's going to be good for the community. It's a beautiful building. Yeah, we'll have to be careful and watch the costs, but I think it's a great project, and I'd like to see it move forward.
You have a comment, Brian?
I do, but so yeah, I think I've talked to a lot of people in town, and we're the other night just talking to a few people, and I think people might be hung up on location, and I would say that's something that I think people just have to let go, that's sort of not seeing the forest for the trees kind of thing. I think the location, there's lots of reasons why it was there, and I think to move on, I think that the design, it seems to me, with my experience, that it looks pricey, but I don't know. I haven't analyzed the plans, and it's not my job to. But that would be my comment. It looks like it's gonna cost a few bucks, and I think if the town's got this much and it's this much, taxpayers fit in the bill. So anyway, that's my comment. But I'm definitely in support of a medical center in town.
Terry?
Yeah, thanks, through the chair. So I totally support what Councillor Bushel commented on, but there's two components to this thing. First off, we're going to put a complex into this town that's going to support medical professionals. Extremely important to the community. Second of all, the concept is to take that particular piece of property and dual purpose it so that it encourages medical professionals to come to the community. But at the same time, there is a component to it where there's going to be green space and park, which it's never been. It's been a commercial, and we're going to make it that way. And so it's a dual purpose thing. And it's extremely important to the community for two reasons. Number one, we had to fight like hell in order to get Parks View Elementary, so that they didn't close it down. So that was a real interesting component to the development of Sycamoose when it comes to, an educational facility that they were going to close. The next thing that's important to a community is medical professionals. Okay. And we're going to repurpose, the Finlayson Place, and it has a lot of potential when it comes to the development of the community. But I think that this is a fantastic program and a fantastic development for the community in the long haul. And yeah, there's a group that are not happy about it because they feel that maybe, it should be deemed as a park. But I think that the overall concept of this thing, bringing medical professionals to the community that needs this at a time in the province where medical professionals are being really compromised, because it's not easy for a community in order to get doctors into their community. Every community is fighting this. And so I think that this particular development is absolutely fantastic for the community, and I will support this tooth and nail right to the end for, I mean, if it costs me my political career, so be it.
Sounds like a lot of campaigning going on here. Just gonna say,
One last
both
question if I
sides.
can.
are you running for election, Deb? Because if you're not.
No, I'm not. I'm not gonna do any electioneering. I have one question for the fellow from Scott Builders, if possible.
Sure.
Yeah, so my question is, I've asked it before, and I understand where Brian is coming from in terms of the costs and doing, like, and wanting to contain those too. But my question is, the building shows as having a large flat surface area on the top, a flat roof. Is it possible, like, I know I'm not trying to add to the cost now, but in terms of preparing for the future to do something that allows us to add that as like public, almost park space or green space or, benches and such in the future?
Great question. And we did do some research on it, Deb. Where we're at right now is, yes, it can be done. If there's two distinctions, I guess. The first one is, do you want it to be a green roof, where we've seen those with some grass and plantings on a portion of the roof? That's one thing. And then it would be accessible for a maintenance person to go up and, let's say, tend to the beehives or tend to the grass, that type of thing. It's a different, more complex request if we're going to make it a walkable roof from the point of view of, can it be used by the public for park space, for childcare, for whatever other space beyond the maintenance aspect of it. It can be, but that would need to be designed for as part of the building. The three main components would be structurally, the building would have to be shored up. So to make it walkable for what we call a live load of people gathering on it, we would need more columns to support that level of walkability of the roof. And that has to be designed in at the get-go as well. The roof structure design would need to be designed differently. So if you can imagine, if you have people walking on a roof, it needs to have a harder walking surface so that people walking on it don't punch holes to the roof and then you end up with roof leaks. That would be the other main component that would need to be done at the get-go. The balance of items, whether we put an elevator in there or stairs to make it accessible, put a fence, those elements could be deferred, but there would be a material cost to make sure the roof is walkable in the future. And that's, I don't know the delta of that number. The total cost to make it walkable with stairs and elevator, I think, was somewhere between 900,000 and 1.3 million, I think was the number that we provided to Ms. Bennett.
Okay. No, and so obviously, like if that's a deal breaker in terms of whatever we can get funding for, then we don't look at it. But I just think it's one of those things we should always consider since it is such a large space. So.
Sure. No, understood. Yeah. And so council can give us direction on that before we move forward with the design, because I don't think that is part of this development permit doesn't contemplate it, nor does it need to, because it's only dealing with the outline of the building and the site planning and elevations. It's not dealing with how the roof is used. So I think you're okay to move forward on this development permit. And then it could be contemplated at the next stage.
Perfect. Maybe we'll get some great funding between now and then. But yeah, no, that's a great answer. Thank you.
Thank you.
So my comment is that, I wasn't crazy about this whole thing to start with, and I'm not running, so I can say whatever I want. The one thing that the public is not taking into consideration, the few complainers, is that for 4 years, we tried to get doctors with no success. Well, we said we're going to build a new building. We got some doctors, and I am assuming that we'll be able to keep those doctors in the community. In a community that is growing and aging, you need doctors. And so this will provide it. It also, besides having park space, has some 3,000 square feet of interior space that is going to be for public common use that we could hold these meetings at, or you could have your debates for election at. So there's gonna be a public component to it all the way around, so I think that it's a good deal and I was asked, could it be stopped by some people? And I said, well, taxpayer wants to cough up at this point, stage of the game, about $1.5 million, because that's what it would be to say goodbye to this. And some people seem to suggest that, well, that's better than wait until you're into it for $4 or $5 million. Well, where would you put it? The community has to buy another piece of property to put it someplace else. It just happened that the Habitat for Humanity and this all kind of hit at the same time. Choices were made. You're saving some green space. You're doing the right thing to move this forward, and I think it'll be a great asset to the community. The school, doctors, clean water, decent roads, snow removal. That's what we're supposed to be about. And we have to go for the majority of the community, not for the 5 or 6 people that want to yap all the time. So that's my comment. Anything further on this? Okay, 1217 Young Crescent. I don't know what that's.
Vote on it?
Gordon?
Want to have a vote on the recommendation?
Yeah.
Oh, vote on the recommendation? Yeah, no. So all in favor? Carried. Sorry. B 1217 Young Crescent.
This is one that was brought up as a late item at the previous meeting. So we added it to the agenda on this meeting. This is right beside the barn. Here's a photo of it. It came from members of the committee. So I just took a picture and leave it here for you to discuss.
So that property was recently purchased by someone. Don't know exactly what they're doing with it. But like, I didn't think you're allowed to have a fifth wheel parked on Main Street, so I don't know what bylaw does about it. And I don't know what the intention for it is. I heard they were gonna fill it up to level with the street with gravel, which means that the drainage will go in underneath of the red barn. So I don't think they've applied for any type of permit of any sort. So I don't know. I know that our whole process is a complaint basis. If anybody's complained yet or not, but like when you go down Main or Finlayson Street, you got the area that Brendan Dizelle has, the bridge, and then you got the red barn, and then you got this with the big fifth wheel sitting there. Like, are we encouraging camping on Main Street?
Right, so this is a commercial zone property. It fronts actually on Young, and so this is the backyard. There was a planter, like a structural landscape planter with plants in it. They had requested that be removed, and then they did put the gravel down on the property. The RV is kind of new. We haven't received any complaints about the property. They should have gotten a development permit, a commercial development permit when they removed the planter or added the gravel. But again, we haven't had any complaints. And then there really should be screening on Main Street if they're using the backyard for storage. There should be screening. However, I think it is a residential use. So yeah, it's kind of in a little bit of a gray area from the residential perspective. Definitely, there shouldn't be anybody camping unless they have a campground, which this isn't a campground.
Okay. Any other comments on this?
Is there an access permit? Like, is that there access to this would be the backyard? So would they need an access permit for a driveway into there?
They would, they don't have an access.
Okay, just a correction.
Anybody else? Go ahead, Court.
Yeah, no, it's pretty straightforward. It's just like new siding, windows, doors, and front fence yard, as long as they, they're cleaning up the premises and yeah, no, like I say, they haven't had any complaints about the RV, but maybe their neighbors are complaining. I haven't heard anything, but looks good to me.
Okay. I do have a comment.
Go ahead, Deb.
Yeah, so that isn't the picture I sent. The picture I sent had honestly every freaking square inch of that property covered with trucks, campers, it for sure every long weekend, and I know beyond that. And like Brian says, there's no access because you can see there's parking, district parking that totally blocks that site in. And so then they've got it totally filled up with stuff. I hearsay. I've heard they complained about people parking on the street because they couldn't get all their vehicles in and out. They've turned it into a storage compound or yard or whatever, but it just seems that they should have had to do something in terms of an application. And I did contact them and ask them to talk to the district. And my understanding is they never did. They just, anyway, it doesn't look like that on most weekends. It is totally filled with vehicles.
And if people park on the street, then they can't get out, they can.
You can't get out.
But they're.
So if there was a fire or something, you got big trouble.
So maybe by law, Johnny should stop by. Anyway.
I
There's
can
nothing else.
resend the picture I had.
Just on the application, it says fenced yard. Are they putting a gate in, you know, or?
No, there's no, this isn't it. We don't have an application at all. This is just brought up from the floor. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay,
All right.
nothing else? 22-233-DP 301 Main Street. Who has this? Sarah, go ahead.
Right, so here's 301 Main Street. You can see in the ortho, we're near the roundabout up the end there. Next slide. So this property is designated within the town center land use and is zone C1 town center commercial. Next slide. The proposal is to upgrade the facade, windows and doors of the existing little building there. And then put in fencing to screen the rear yard from Main Street. Add in some benches with planters, some planters along the fence at the back there. As well as create a site where they could have a mobile vendor in the summers. Slide. Here's some photos of what's there currently on either side, and the yard on the bottom right corner there would be the area that would be fenced. We do have a recommendation for council. So the property owner is here to for Terry.
Any comment? Go ahead, Brian.
Just a question for Sarah. So I know there's a 0 lot line on Main Street there. I think it's, it's positive. It's a positive thing when people are fixing up their properties for sure. The benches and the planters, do we have a plan for Main Street as far as what the final, what it's all going to look like? I know we're burying the electrical lines. We've got a streetscape that's planned as far as I saw some drawings of that. But as far as what the benches and what the planters are like, it just seems like if this individual does a bunch of work and then that's contrary to what is going to be done later, I just think that might be a little bit of a waste of time. And it's just a question.
Yeah, I'll let Scott answer about the Main Street plan. In general, like this property, because it was developed like pre-incorporation, it's not, the building itself isn't right at the front lot line.
Yes,
They do have quite a bit of space there
sure.
that they are choosing to activate as part of the streetscape, which is positive. It definitely ties in with our official community plan and what it wants to see.
Sure.
So yeah, they do have that space there that they can use, would be like a semi-public, private kind of space, because it is on their private property.
And just to answer the question on the design of Main Street, so Jeremy and Daryl are working on a design, and they're starting with water, sewer, getting power underground, so those technical service type things. We did do that Main Street revitalization exercise, with what that's gonna look like, so I think the engineer right now is trying to kind of put those two things together. But I think probably we're gonna be focusing on between Shuswap and Paradise, where there's no sidewalk right now, and then eventually get to this area. I think most of the plans for this development permit probably will be movable.
Okay.
But probably with the streetscape, I mean, it was, furniture, street furniture and, an inviting atmosphere. So I think it meets that as well. So I hope that, any investment that's made, he's not gonna have to come back and redo it.
Yeah, my comment is very positive, though. I think it's great. People aren't lined up trying to fix up their properties in this town, so it's great that this is going on, I think.
My only comment is they're gonna access it from the back, I assume. They're not gonna have access through Main Street, so that doesn't appear to be what they're doing with the benches where they're placed at, so.
Through the chair. So generally the backyard will be used for their storage and their garbage collection. The front, there may be a gate there that would not be used often, be used seasonally for them to park the mobile vendor when it's not in use, just to be able to bring it in and out.
Okay, so our OCP is very clear. We've had this conversation several times. There is no access off Main Street.
Yeah, so it's not access. So access would be crossing our boulevard into the street. And so that wouldn't be the case.
Well, how are they gonna get that vendor in and out?
Come through the back,
Out
through the gate at the front to the front of the property, and then to remove it would go back into the backyard.
So they're opening the gate for access to the vendor who's coming in through the back. Okay. Any other comments, Gordon?
Yeah, just one comment, and it might not be a big thing because it's a renovation, more of a renovation, is the tax revitalization. It's in the area for the tax revitalization, and don't know if he's taken advantage of that. I call it a discount, and maybe he could inquire with Kelly in regards to that. Just a comment.
Any other comments? You good, Deb?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I've loved what they've done so far. I think they've been great community members and what they've done on Main Street in terms of the revitalization, and so I'm supportive.
Okay. So. Recommendation of the Planning and Development Committee, we recommend council authorize issue a development permit number 22-233 DP for the property legally described as Lot 1 District Lot 452 Kamloops Division, Yale District Plan 11256, except Plan KAP 84596, located at 301 Main Street to permit a facade upgrade and landscaping. Hoover. Seconder, all in favor? Carry, thanks. 22285 DVP Trans Canada frontage road. Who has this? This is beside the Chevron case.
Yeah, it's mine. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Amar might be online, I'm not sure. So council is also going to consider this. This one will be on the agenda for council's consideration this evening. So this is an application for a development variance permit to vary the subdivision development servicing bylaw to vary sections 501 and 502. Those are the servicing requirements for roads. And so an application was made for a building permit for the property right beside the Chevron. And as part of that, we have the engineering department do a review of the services that are required. So they assess the street in front and provide the road cross section that's required in the bylaw. So this is the 25-meter urban collector road cross section, which is required. So we are doing a review of our subdivision development servicing bylaw, and we're moving towards an alternate design. So this one you can see there's sidewalk, boulevard, curb and gutter, the street, and then boulevard and sidewalk again. So the new design would be more keeping in line with what exists now and reducing the need for sidewalk. So the top drawing, you can see that there'd be the boulevard and then the swale and then the road. So there wouldn't be that need for urban gutter or sidewalk. This is the alternate cross section that was provided by the developer's engineer. It comes very close to what we're looking at for the new bylaw. Our engineering department has agreed that this is doable and would be suitable for the area. And yeah, staff's recommending that the development variance permit for this be issued. We did notify the neighbors in the area. We did have one person ask, and it was more of a question of how that affects their street on
Sherlock.
Sherlock, yeah, and it really won't affect Sherlock. It affects the Trans-Canada frontage road. And so again, staff's recommending that this go to council for approval.
Any comments? So this,
Check it off.
am I seeing on the side of the one side of it, is there like a street lamp there?
So if you go to the cross section, so they will be required to provide street lamps, and that's in the engineering and servicing report. In the RD3 design, it's more prescriptive of where the streetlights are required. So there still will be that streetlight requirement, but I believe they'll meet the bylaw as far as the lighting goes.
So the one thing that I notice when I go around town here is we have this idea that we're looking for, I don't know, you can't hide anywhere. So our street lamps, the output is being reduced, but we're putting more of them in. So go out to Old Town Bay and drive along there. There's a street lamp. Go to Hiller Road. There's a street lamp every 100 feet. And you go to other communities and there's a thing called light pollution. So are we still sticking with this every 100 feet? Because you go to most communities, the state of Arizona, for example, their street lamps are actually 4-foot high posts with a square light on the top of it. And you can walk down there and that light is not impeding you from stargazing. That's what you wish to do. And their cost is a lot less. Like our street lamps are ridiculous, right? It adds a huge amount of money to any development. So is there some way we can review our street light thing? We've asked for this a couple times. We were supposed to get something from Daryl that basically had what the candle wattage was, and it was not a white light. It was kind of a amber orangey light, and we never heard back about that. So the lighting thing is a horrendous expense. Adding curb and gutter and storm sewer is another horrendous expense. So when we're in the mode of trying to cut costs for housing development, those are the places that we have to start. So if that lighting thing could be reviewed somewhere. I know he's applied for the permit now, but it's kind of like we got 2 street lamps in the middle of no place in front of power lighting. I mean, it looks ridiculous. So go ahead.
Okay, this has been topic for some time now when it comes to the street lighting. I think we have like 6 or 7 different designs of street lights in this town. And we need to find some way in where we can absolutely have some sort of continuity when it comes to the street lights. So it has to be revisited, but it's extremely cost prohibitive because, okay, we're gonna make a change, then we're gonna have to make a change, and I would like to maybe see something change when it comes to the entire community. But on one street, we've got a certain type of street light, and on the next street, we've got a certain type of street light, and what we've got going out to Old Town Bay, that's another set of street lights and how they're positioned. Yeah, it has to be revisited, but it's a complex. It's very complex when it comes to us maybe making some decision when it comes to what we're going to develop in the future. So, yeah, we need to revisit it. We have to take a look at it. But I think it's a conversation that needs to take place, and I think staff has to really take a hard look at this.
But Scott,
And I'll look and see what the new subdivision bylaw says about the streetlights and we can, provide an update.
it's just like I said, it's, I don't know. I can't actually tell you this. Can anybody tell me what the cost of the street lamp is now? Like, they're not $1,000 or $1,000. They're $4 or more.
I know when we put them in, there were 3,200, and that was 15 years ago.
Yeah, so they're probably $7,000 now. So.
Yeah.
You had a comment for it?
Sorry, this is Amr. Yeah, they're approaching $10,000. So I'm trying to get quotes from different guys, but one of the guys that we used for lighting in the past, he was saying it's over 10 grand. And it's not so much a post, I guess it's a coloring of it. It's a specific color. So to have it painted that color would added a huge expense.
There you go. Go ahead, Gordon.
Yeah, I recommend we move this forward and let Amar and Daryl and Scott and his team, try to reduce the costs for him. That would be the best thing to do. But keep the project going.
I had no plan of stopping this. I'm just going where we talk about affordable housing and this and that and everything we do. The curb and gutter was one big aspect. I know when we talked about it. Hiller Road out there. We not long after we connected it, he didn't have to put in the curb and gutter because as soon as you put that in, you have to storm sewer in. So as soon as you do that, the cost per lot went up by about 15 or 18,000. This was 7 or 8 years ago. Then street lights, that $10,000 a street light, they're 100 feet apart. Like it adds a lot of money. And so when we talk about affordable housing and we say that our road, curb and gutter and street lights already added $40,000 of the cost of a lot, that doesn't seem to make a lot of sense. So if you want a lot to be where people can afford to buy it, you can't have a $40,000 lot cost. Just have a street curb and street lights. Go ahead, Brian.
Just a little thing about subdivisions. What some communities in states and Lower Mainland are doing is they're requiring each residence has to have a photocell and have their lighting on every night and to cut down on the street lamps in subdivisions. And those are some of the things they're doing because they are really expensive. I don't know about the color of the street lamp. Isn't it black? Like that's not a weird color. Like anyway,
I don't know, maybe they've changed the color.
They're matching the old Miami Vice blue. Nice.
Yeah, well, like I said, we need to be a little more practical now. And it's Ken, Brian's absolutely right. In the states in Tucson and Phoenix, in the new development areas they have, in front of every house, there's where their sidewalk is, accessing the front door. They have a square post that's 6 by 6 or 8 by 8, and it is lit. And the other advantage is on that lighting, it has their house number, so that an emergency vehicle can find them. It's the low key light. It's good enough. If you got it in every house along there, you can walk there. You're you're not, once your eyes become accustomed to it, you're not in the dark, right? You can see clearly where you're going.
Yeah, to the chair. Okay, one last point. So where we've been and where we're going when it comes to the light. So we need to revisit this. We have to take and an overall view of the lighting. And there are components to the lighting and how we proceed with it. And I think that we have to look at maybe a new concept, but then how do we change what we've already got? But there is a serious component to it, and that is the cost effectiveness to LED lights compared to what we've got now, and new development, and what we're going to address and how the new development should take a look at street lighting and lighting in general. So it is a very complex conversation to have, and I think that staff should do some research into it and maybe come back with some recommendations as to how we see this going forward. But lighting is a real serious, complex issue when it comes to community, because it's been a total cluster when it comes to the district that Sikkim was over the last 25 to 30 years of how we've dealt with lighting. And so lighting is extremely important. I think that maybe we should even light up all the streets along or all of the trees along the corridor along Highway 97, and maybe, what the streets or the trees.
Getting off the beaten track.
I know, but what I'm just saying is that we have to visit this thing. We have to look at it, and we have to seriously reconsider what we're going to do with lighting when it comes to lighting.
Well, we made a recommendation to staff, but the actual council was one that suggests. The problem has been in the past that every council that's come along has picked a different light. And every time we get a different planner, we get a different light. That's the problem. You just need to pick one. The city of Calgary has a standard street light everywhere. But I don't know what they cost, but I can't imagine that they're $10,000 a piece. So we just need to come up with the lighting system that works for the community and then stick with it somehow. So that it can't be this week it's this and next week it's that. So anyway, let's move on. The recommendation is Planning and Development Committee recommend that the district of Sicamous issue a development variance permit for 22-285-DVP to vary the Sicamous subdivision of development service and bylaw number 500/2003, sections 501 to 502, service and requirements for parcel B, being a consolidated lots 1 and 2, CCA 6644139, section 31, township 21, range 7, west of the 6th meridian, Kamloops, Yale District Plan 30190 to allow the construction of a commercial building. Need a mover, Gordon, seconder, Brian, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. All right. We're on 22-245-DP 521 DeBell. Who has this? Go ahead, Sarah.
Okay, so this one is on DeBell, which is just off of Highway 97A, down along Mirror Lake. Okay. Designated residential waterfront medium density land use and is currently zoned R1 and 2 single and 2 family residential. The proposal is to take down the existing dwelling, which is shown on the bottom left there, and build a new dwelling unit in its place. So you can see on the site plan on the right that the new dwelling and deck will be closer to the lake and will be located just outside the SPIA that the QEP has identified. So that kind of runs roughly diagonally across and comes close to the corner of the deck on the right there. Next slide. So conditions of permit are based on the recommendations of the QEP and the riparian areas protection regulation assessment report. So one of those is that all the stormwater from the roof leaders and the deck gets drained outside of the development permit area. So it would be out towards portion of the property that's out towards DeBell Street. They would need to have environmental monitoring to ensure appropriate sediment and erosion control is in place during the demolition and construction. And there's also a requirement to have the QEP prepare a post-development report that would go to the province. And we would be asking to see that as a checkoff to show that the development permit was, what's the word I'm looking for? That the permit's not going to expire, that it's done. They did what they said they were going to do, and that permit will remain in force. So the agent, Ed Hoffert, is here today if there are any questions for him, and there is a recommendation here for council. Just a quick note that this will not go to council until we have received notification from the province. We do expect it in the next couple of days or so, but not in time for today's council meeting.
I have a comment or a question. So if they're actually not staying within the foundation of the existing dwelling, if they're coming closer to the lake, I thought there was something about because their property line is out in the lake. Does that get adjusted or does that stay as such?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how much leverage we have to ask for information. So that will probably come up when they go to do section 11 to replace their dock. It's more likely when we see that happen. For development permit, in this case, I don't know. Scott, you have any comments?
I've really only seen at the subdivision stage where the province looks at it and then asks for that dedication, usually not a development permit, but like Sarah said, if they're looking at changing the lease or the agreement on the foreshore, and maybe the province might ask for it at that time.
No, they've always only ever asked for it when there's work done on the upland to pull back to the high water mark, the property line. Because all that long there's still lake and legally you can't own it. And there's a lot of people that believe because they actually have title out into the water that they're allowed to do whatever they want with a dock. But they're not. They still have to meet all the required. So. Got a comment, Lord?
No, I think it's a great project. It's upgrade the existing home and or replace the existing home. And I think, it has a retaining wall out front already. They're staying within the SPA area. So yeah, I think it's a good project. We did one just next door, I think, when we first came on as councillors 8 years ago, and it was pretty much the same size a lot. And that's what they did. They rebuilt the whole place, but they just moved it ahead a bit, that they're allowed to stay within that area, SPA area, outside the SPA area.
It's not our purview, the SPIA, so.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, totally support it. The builder is little, but you know what? It's hard to get a builder these days, so. No, great. Like just get it going.
Got to figure out the lighting.
Well, they're lit up by the water treatment plant over there, the Christmas tree. So any other comments, Deb?
Nope, all good.
Okay. So did I read the station?
Yep.
I did.
Sure.
No, I don't think I did. I think I read the last one, which is actually exactly the same, except a couple of an address change. So the Planning Development Committee recommend council authorize and issue a development permit number 22-245 BP for the property legally described as Lot 5, District Lot 496, Kamloops Division, Yale District, Plan 2936, located at 521 DeBell Street to permit the demolition of the existing dwelling and construction of a new single-family residential dwelling. mover, seconder, all in favor? Carried. Still want that house though. All right, F. Mr. Kevin Bird, Aqua Vita, Sycamore Creek.
Kevin is on the line. He provided some drawings of what he'd like to do in a couple different properties. The first one is down at 01 Sycamore Creek Frontage Road. So that's on the water side of the property where the hotel basement is. And then there's a little bit on the other side of Highway 97A. The other property is 1005 Riverside and Wet Up. So that's one that we had a development permit previously for. And then another drawing, the last drawing, a drawing showing the unit that he's proposing as for the development. It's a small footprint kind of prefab home he puts on a basement. Yeah, Kevin's online. I can have him explain it. Kevin, if you need us to go back and forth on the slides, let us know.
Sure. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, yeah, so this development is 134 plus or minus micro suites. It's a brand that I developed over the last few years that successfully sells out very quickly. Right now, we're doing a project at Big White, 172 units there that we're in the pre-sale on. And prior to that, we did a project in Vernon, 103 units across the street from Okanagan Lake. That sold out immediately. I can say that people are living in these suites year round in Vernon. So the biggest rental we thought would be Airbnb, but we were wrong. It's mostly year round rental. That's in Vernon. Up at Big White, it'll be totally Airbnb. So basically our product's 313 square feet. You can see our floor plans at ownvita.com. We only have one floor plan, but it sleeps 4 people. So the suites come fully furnished. Basically, we pre-sell them and then build them. So we go into an aggressive pre-sale campaign once we receive a development permit. So what I wanted to do was get everything back to ground oriented rather than stacked product. So people have come out and said, we'd love to be able to just drive up to our suite. So that's what we've done for a layout. So I just wanted to bring this forth prior to spending any real money or waste anybody's time. So I'm open for your comments. We plan on having 2 different color schemes so that you go back and forth. But the product speaks for itself. It sells very well. So
I have a comment. Kevin, this is Jeff, Chair of the Planning Development Committee. Your access to phase 1, like where, how are you getting access to that?
Slide, Stephanie.
Like you're coming off Highway 97, it appears, and I think that there was discussion that was had by the previous 2 people that tried to do development there. And they actually had to work something out with the trailer court there. So I don't know. Have you already investigated the access off Highway 9? Because they closed the access, which was right near that corner. So
yeah. So I haven't had any discussion with anybody. So you know, if there is no access, there is no access. That'll be simple. So I have not had any meetings with anybody.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like, Gordon, if you could comment, I'm pretty sure that it was discussed that trying to put an access in there to that piece of property across the highway was gonna come with some relationship with the trailer court there. Sycamore's,
Yeah, the previous developer had lots of negotiations with highways in regards to an interchange there, like a turning lane and a turnout lane. And so, yeah, that would have to be done with highways. I mean, I'm sure Scott's aware of that.
So right now for the subdivision of the portion north of the creek, so there's a realignment and a new intersection required. And that's kind of north of the property. And that would include the access to the trailer park. So yeah, there'd have to be some negotiation between the property owners to get through the trailer park to get to that property.
so my other comment is that is the other side of it with the 17 houses, are they supposed to go ahead?
So they have a pretty solid plan and we're about to issue the PLR for that. So I'd say they're very close to going ahead.
So one of the discussions in a previous meeting that we had, they basically were trying to take that park dedication and move it over to this property. So what's happening with that? Because they wanted that park dedication for their housing layout. So are two people not having a conversation here?
No, I think for Kevin and I met 2 weeks ago and I'm gonna give him kind of a planning review of this proposal. We're probably looking at a rezoning and a development permit. You know, we have to look at the creek and the highway. So we've done that with the other proposal north of the creek. They're gonna get their list of everything they need to do. If they want to make changes, they have the opportunity to do that. You know, eventually this property is going to be, you know, its own title. So yeah, there might be two different property owners, but yeah, they're going to have to work together if they want their plans to work.
Yeah, so like we're, just for your own information, Kevin, like the park dedication area, if he gets to move it off of there, it's supposed to go where you got units 27 through 43, that would have been public park with some parking allowed for the people that were coming to use it. That was what the discussion was. So if this development goes as it's proposed, then that isn't going to happen over there. And I don't know that he'll proceed with what he's trying to do. So I think that 3 or 4 people should be sitting in a room having a conversation. So just my opinion. Any other comments?
So this is just the first little overview to, there's nothing, this is just the start.
This is just a start.
Yeah.
But so, like I said, from knowing what's going on with the other property.
Yeah.
There's issues with this, so.
Sure.
The people need to have a conversation, so. The sooner they have that conversation, the sooner, like, I don't have an issue with this. Looks good, it's just the access and other development want to move the dedication of the park plan, so. And I don't know how far along any of those are. I don't know whether they'll end up coming to the next planning and development committee meeting. I have no idea. Any other comments? Go ahead, Gordon.
Kevin, want to say something first?
Go ahead, Kevin, sorry.
Sorry, yeah, so you were saying that this would be subject to a rezoning. So I have to ask why.
Yeah, I know on the other side of Highway 97 is large holdings. So, you know, there'd be one single family dwelling, one secondary dwelling probably permitted. So for, you know, many smaller units. But yeah, I'd have to look at, you know, the use compared to the existing zone. I believe the existing zone was very specific to what previously planned there, like the hotel. Zone, I believe it's the resort commercial zone. So yeah, we can have a look at it and see if it fits with it, but haven't had a chance to do that yet.
Any other comments, Gord?
Yeah, through the chair. I mean, I like the plan. Property's sat stagnant now for quite a while. Unfortunately, the foundation's already in, but, you know, I mean, if it is proposed, and go ahead, maybe they could also look at, our local manufacturer and hopefully they'll, well, you know, Sycamore will benefit from employment and, everything else that goes along with it. So, yeah, I like the, you know, once he maybe put the two developers together on the 14 residential lots and figure out the access and everything and the beach as well. I think the beach, not much you can do about that. It's already dedicated park. But yeah, sit them down together and yeah, I like the project.
Yes. Unfortunately, there's no park dedication on that piece of property. It's on the other piece of property.
Well, that's up to us as a council that will,
It's already been dedicated.
so yeah, so
It's already dedicated park on the other side of the creek.
Yeah.
I just wanted to move it.
all the way through.
So there, for, you know, the entire property, there's a covenant in place that says what the park dedication will be. So it actually hasn't been dedicated yet. And I understand that, you know, and that's part of the PLR is, hey, this is the covenant, this is what it says. They want to change it, it would have to come back to council to accept that.
Yeah, that's what we said when we had the conversation with him, but I'm just saying, he didn't want that residential to have the park in front. He wanted it moved over to this piece of property, which is the same piece of property currently, right?
Right.
So the two developers need to have a conversation with staff. Go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, I think that, there's certain people in town that talk about, they get a little picky with what types of things. Oh, yeah, small units and modular. And I just wanted, my comment was that, we don't have people lined up coming into these properties and taking over a property that started with the foundation on it and everything. So I think, it's, it's, if it's not perfect for everybody, I'd say, we have to really see, take a good look at this. And I would be really supportive of this because we've got a few foundations that are sitting here in town that are not, it doesn't look good.
Can I ask a question, Kevin?
Sure.
What type of price point is this unit gonna be?
We'd be in the 324.9.
Thank you. Go ahead, Jerry.
Just a comment to the chair and to Kevin. In regard to your vision for this piece of property, I want to thank you for stepping up and taking a look at this. And I'm totally supportive of this particular project as well. So thanks for your interest. It's important to Sycamore that we get this right. So, and it's an important development for the future of Sycamore. So thank you.
Yeah, I'll get my my engineering in line with the other engineering, and we'll come up with a proper plan. This was done, very quickly to be, sent to you. So everything is subject to change. So making if we can't get those suites or units across the highway, then maybe that just becomes a parking lot. I don't know. I have no idea.
Well, thank you, Kevin. We appreciate your time that you put into this and looking at it. And again, maybe it is somewhat of a housing thing that people can afford to buy. So, they're small, but I mean, that's what there seem to be building a lot of now. They seem to get bought up. So anyway, you have some conversations to have with staff and the guy doing the property beside that and then bring it back.
There's another one as well. The property.
One on the channel.
Yeah, so this one's on Riverside and Wet Up. we'd seen a previous application for townhouses on that riverside portion of the property. It's one of the marinas right now, but yeah, this is the second proposal.
So what happened to the first one?
First one, I haven't heard from the applicant, but I've heard from the owner that they're no longer proceeding.
Again, is it permitted use? Or do we have to rezone?
There'd have to be a rezoning. Yeah.
So council has to make a decision whether they want to rezone this to. Go ahead, Gord.
Yeah, just wanted to hear Kevin's vision on this property.
Basically, my vision is to, bring, some nightly rentals and weekly rentals into the downtown Sycamoose area. With, and again, fully furnished suites, walking distance to downtown, of course. And I love the site. It's a great location. Then again, what I build now is my Vita brand, which is my micro suite brand, and that's all I do now. I don't vary from that.
So I have a comment. There's an existing marina there.
Yeah.
And so like these people that may purchase these places there, I see they all only have a single parking stall. Or is there two per unit?
So there's for every 5 units, there's 9 parking stalls.
Okay, so like I just see that on waterfront like that, you're most likely gonna have boats and trailers and this does not look like it will accommodate that. So will the entrance in there, the road structure and everything else, I'm gonna assume that's stratified.
That's all stratified, yes.
Okay. All right, any other comments on this? What, I mean, this would have to come back. First is the rezoning, so the zoning now is waterfront commercial.
C1A waterfront commercial residential.
Okay. So is there any commercial acts, like the two brown things right at the curb, are those commercial?
Yeah, I put in a couple of blocks there for commercial along Riverside.
Okay. It'll be up to council to approve or not approve. Anybody see any serious showstoppers? Well, I guess that'll help with the next one. Okay, no more comments on this?
I just want to, can I just add on our new waterfront commercial, our new zoning bylaw, waterfront commercial, it calls for tourist accommodation. Would this not fall under tourist accommodation?
Right, if they were always available for tourists.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is not gonna create long-term rental.
Yeah, it's like, it could, I'd have to, again, I want to have a really good look at it and get back to Kevin with what we're gonna be looking for, so.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll work on that.
That's it?
Thank you, Kevin.
Okay, thank you. Okay, bye-bye.
5G, District of Sycamore zoning bylaw. 1,000. Are we gonna be long on this one?
It's up to you.
I think we are gonna be long on this one, so let's switch G and H. Is that okay?
Yeah.
So let's deal with H. 21-083-DP 102 Martin Street. A site plan, and the proponent is in the building.
Want to move forward in the slide? One more. Yes, so this is a development permit application. I believe, Mr. Kylo, you presented this once before.
I just wanted to give you guys an update.
Sure.
Plans here, there's three different, where should I put them over here? Sure. There's three different options that we're looking at for the planning. And it's not just 102, it's also 902 Riverside, so 2 lots there. So this, of course, is the lake. This is Martin Street, and this is Riverside Road. And we like this plan best.
So you got access onto
This is Martin.
Martin, yeah.
And this is Riverside. So for any fire or 911 stuff, they got, you know.
How many units?
This one shows 28, but again, the variance or the setbacks are pretty stringent on this type. I'm gonna have to come to a variance for some setbacks because, you know, it's like 6 meters and
Yeah, no, we,
park model thing, like, well, that's what the bylaws are saying now, and it's like,
well, we passed the zoning bylaw, it's reduced.
okay. Anyways, that'll help. So it's gonna be somewhere between 28 and 30, and then of course there'd be 30 boat slips out here on the 2 foreshore leases. That looks
And so you're providing water and sewer power?
Yes, water. So the next stage after this is if this concept kind of goes, we'll start working on the utilities, drawings, and then we'll start doing some concept drawings of what the look and feel is, fencing, that kind of stuff. But I just wanted to get this in front of you guys to see what are the three, you like this one the best. And then we continue to going on with the engineering.
So you're doing a combination of park model and RV?
The reason why the RVs are in here is because of the current setbacks in the book zoning bylaw. If those are getting changed, then these would just all be a park model.
All the lots?
Yeah.
Well, your hatching for park models is only over there. This is showing as
Again, because of your guys'
setback.
So all 3 concepts, total 28 lots.
No, this one has 25.
I see.
This one has 29.
So, are these gonna be for sale?
Yeah, that's the idea of them for sale. So you'd get a lot and a boat slip.
And what's this area like, or are you there?
Well, we're not here yet. This is all, you know, we got our setback from because the walkway is gonna be in here.
Mhm.
Wherever that's going. And then we would make this, I don't know, some kind of a park-like setting for the users.
Is that where Bahama John's used to be?
Muhammad John's right in here.
Maybe they'll open that up.
Yeah.
So is it a bare land strata or would a building strata or how?
No, it'd be a bare land strategy, you buy the lot and then they can either put their RV there or park model.
And so you would go in, you'd only one way kind of thing, or would it be, would traffic both ways?
Yeah,
Do you know?
I don't know. We haven't done it. Just-
The way it's inside.
I guess it's the
Yeah.
question.
We could make it so that you only turn it off this way, maybe.
So. The only reason that I suggest this is because there's Aquavita. If you're gonna, we seemed the council was against all this stuff to start with some time ago. We turned that down flat 2 years ago. And now we've got another project showing up to do tiny houses.
Down the road, yeah.
And then we got this, so I'm just going like, you should consider it.
Oh. Well, and the other thing too is like,
I don't see any
the
reason why we
property's
wouldn't consider it.
property's
Turn it
been
down
sitting
2
vacant.
years. I know. Why?
2016.
Because that's not what they want.
So, and I just got a letter to clean it up. Nope, I got one of those too. Did you? So it is cleaned up. The property has been cleaned up, but, that's costly to us every year. It's cleaned up, especially when I drive around and see other properties.
What are you doing on the other side where you're building?
Nothing as of yet.
And what is that taken up That's taking both of the lots.
No, no.
Taking the one with the,
No.
this one over here is taking the one with the little house, or is the little house?
Little
built?
house is right here.
Yeah, so it's taking that out.
Office is this one. This is Papa's Marine?
Yeah, so you're back right up to it.
So you prefer concept number one?
Yeah, we prefer.
That's what you, yeah, that looks good.
And the park model size will be the 800 square foot.
No, they're 535 or something. That's the.
Okay.
Good work. So it's just an update and we're just gonna keep moving forward with the engineering. And we're using these guys. These guys are in town here now. I don't know if you guys know that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you might want to have them look at our zoning bylaw, which is on our agenda later today.
Okay.
So the new zoning bylaw for is those setbacks, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm sure that this is gonna come under like H4, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't know. I'd have to.
So, but the zoning setback for that is like 2 meters.
Yeah, I think the big, how this all looks and along here would be the big thing. I think it's great.
Yeah, so that would be the next step. We'll get some drawings of what the look and feel is. And once we know what we can do for setbacks, then this one will change, probably this one's not gonna change, but this one would change a bit.
Supposed to also have something commercial on the front.
Yeah, I'll just put a waffle cart, I got a waffle cart. So I'll just have that there, Gordon can run it. That's commercial,
Waffle cart.
yeah, they're good too, yeah,
So your daughters don't want to work.
no, they're not working it, but we'll find some.
Waffle cart.
As a comment.
Yeah, I know you can't see this, that's okay.
No, I'm okay with that. Just a quick question. I have had a little trouble hearing you guys too. So I apologize if you've already covered it. But Todd, when we talked about this before, this isn't going to be a gated community, right?
Gated.
Yeah.
Yeah, so people, I can hear you talking a little bit about commercial and such.
Yeah.
Yeah, people will be able to walk through it. Won't.
We can gate it here.
Well, you're still gonna be able to walk down.
I think she's trying to say she doesn't want it gated.
Well, it's not gated now, but.
Yeah, no, I know that. I'm just confirming the plan is not to make it a gated community.
That's correct.
Perfect, thank you.
There's the waterfront walkway.
Yeah, the waterfront walkway, yeah.
And, if we're gonna do the waterfront walkway,
Probably not in favor of this 2 years ago. I've always been in favor of this.
we have a boat launch at Weta. We have one at Capel, and I know nobody likes to hear this, but
I'm totally supporting.
we got too many boat launches and we can only maintain 1 or 2 so far. And the maintenance cost of these boat launches is getting more and more every year. So we should have 3 or 4 really nice boat launches as opposed to 6 crappy ones.
Steffi's research says more boat launches, so. Master plan.
It's good, Doug.
Well, we have Capel, we have.
So I'll leave that with you guys.
You leave with that.
Just rubber stamp it and I'll start tomorrow.
You don't have any staff to build the unit. You're gonna use the new guy down at Enderby?
Yeah.
Thanks, Doug.
Okay,
That's a Deb.
Interested to see how new council takes.
I will revert back to, we don't have somebody waiting for 5G, District of Sycamore zoning bylaw number 1000, 2022. I just want to comment. Been 8 years in the making. Maybe, I guess the only abstention right now is highways, correct?
Correct.
So who's leading this plan, Scott?
So the zoning bylaw was given second reading in May, and we'd like to bring it back for second reading as amended, and then a recommendation of third reading. Public hearing is scheduled for this evening's council meeting, and then council will have the opportunity to consider a second reading as amended and third reading. If you go forward in the slide, these are the changes that happened between second and and this second is amended. We added some language with regard to future council policy, and that's for accessible design. The mobile home park, we adjusted those setbacks in the mobile home parks. We added a site-specific regulation for 433 Finlayson, so that was through the consultation. That's the Eagles Roost, which is 2 doors down. That's the strata. They wanted to just maintain their commercial and their residential use, so we added a special regulation for them. It's easier than doing a whole new zone. And then some mapping changes. McLean McPherson, the owner there, asked to go from industrial to country residential. Transcanada Frontage Road, another one that was residential right now, and we identified it as commercial, and they wanted to remain residential. 515 Holly, that's a bigger piece of property. They wanted to stick to A1 instead of country residential. 5100 Old Town Road, so that's the Old Town development with the RVs. So we just identified the portion for RVs as RVs. What was that one previously? It was C4, the resort commercial. So we've amended it to the RVP1, which is similar to Silver Sands. And then Sycamore Creek Frontage Road. So that's the property that we just talked about with Kevin Bird along the creek. And we just, once we had the new drawing of where they wanted to see their residential, we just adjusted that to follow the creek. So it was just more clear. Other than that, it's pretty much the same bylaw. We did go out, continued some of the consultation. We haven't received a lot back since or leading up to the public hearing. We did receive something from the Legacy saying they don't want to permit short-term rentals in their on their property and in their zone. Council's talked about this a number of times. I guess our feeling, or my feeling, maybe my personal feeling, is that, you know, they really haven't enforced their strata bylaws in 15 years. And for some reason, they think that they want to be zoned so short-term rentals aren't permitted, which they're not permitted now. And then hope that the district will enforce the short-term rentals. I just think the business license bylaws can be a better tool for us to enforce the short-term rentals. So in their units, say if someone is, you know, applies for a business license, and because the strata doesn't approve them, then we can then say you don't have a business license and enforce it that way. Otherwise, we'll be responding to noise complaints and parking complaints and all those types of complaints, which I think it's just easier to do through the business license bylaw. So we're recommending that the stay as the MUR2 zone, which allows short-term rentals consistent with Grandview Shores. Yeah, we sent it out for referrals and all of them came back pretty positive. After third reading, we'll have to go to Ministry of Transportation for approval. I think we're getting very close with Ministry of Transportation for approval of the bylaw. Looking at, you know, a community transportation plan and an agreement to move forward with one. But yeah, we won't really know until council gives a third reading and we can refer it to Ministry of Transportation. So again, staff's recommending second reading as amended and third reading.
I have a question on the zoning map off of Finlayson Street. We still have 3, 4 zones. Was there any discussion held with the Yarmouth group about what they wanted? I thought we were gonna change that to basically C1.
Yeah. And so that was one of the concessions we made with Ministry of Transportation, was with that, with the commercial on the highway. So leaving those as large holdings, and if Yarmouth comes forward with a plan, we can address it through a rezoning. But yeah, right now, we're looking at leaving them mostly as they are with the.
So that will remain as a C2, which is the one where we want the access off the highway.
Well, I'd have to look.
It's the largest, about 7.5 acres. And it's right beside the hotel, which is the property that lines up exactly with the Silver Sands Road.
We'll see, we'll get the map up and look at it. So Schedule A. Or Schedule B1, yeah, sorry. So that one portion would, yeah, be C2, which I believe it is now, it's a commercial zone,
Yeah,
and then
and we're not changing that.
Yeah.
So that access is directly across. I'm just asking because we need to keep it zoned that way so that the access off the highway makes sense, the crossing between Silver Sands and there, because, you know, is there any further conversation that's happened along that way? Like, we went to the meetings down there, we had a thing, and our ask was like, where is the highway access corridor? Like, they were supposed to be contributed, we're supposed to be working on it. Where exactly are we?
I really haven't heard back from the engineering, Ministry of Transportation Engineering on what that plan is. Only that, we've agreed to, in principle, to do a community transportation plan that we'd look at the 2 numbered highways and how our municipal roads interact with those highways. But what the result of that is going to be, I don't know.
Any other comments? Go ahead, Court.
Yeah, just through the chair. Yeah, I spent a fair amount of time going back through even the revised one, and we still have a little bit of room for changes. Like, I just noticed a few things that were unpermitted uses on C1, like storage seemed to disappear on C1. And I made a whole bunch of hand notes again, and I can just hand it back to you. But we have time. There's a couple.
Really, we don't have much time because tonight is going to be public hearing and consideration of the reading, so.
Okay, a few things on definitions, like short-term rental definition is very short. And it doesn't really, the definition of short-term rental is pretty short, and it doesn't really mention anything about the length of stay in it.
And I think what we did, we had the sleeping unit definition, which provides a little bit more context for that definition.
Yeah, it just means the use of a dwelling unit as a sleeping unit.
Right. So then you'd have to look up sleeping unit.
Yeah, I just thought the definition was pretty blah, and it's such a contentious issue. It would be nice to be a little bit more explanatory.
I may interject, a sleeping unit.
Sorry?
A sleeping unit is anything that isn't subject to a tenancy agreement. And the idea was to avoid lumping in seasonal workers with tourists. Like anybody who's coming to town and is here for a short period of time, because we need worker housing. So this was one of the recommended approaches that we researched, was to, instead of tying it to a length of stay, tie it to a tenancy agreement. So if someone has a tenancy agreement, it's a residential use. If there isn't, it's a commercial use.
So we have the definition of sleeping unit means a unit of accommodation not subject to a tenancy agreement for rental on a daily, weekly, or monthly rate and may include a bathroom and cooking facilities. So it'd be something is available on a daily, weekly, or monthly rate. So, and then the tenancy agreement is key where, someone's.
Yep, just complicated.
Yeah.
People will say, what is short-term rental? And you got to go back and forth and look at, different stuff, but I don't want to stop the zoning bylaw, believe me. But I just had a few things, and I can give you this today, and you can look at it before tonight, but nothing major. There's just a few things. Yeah. And in regards to short-term rental, I mean, I think the legacy is trying to get us to manage their short-term rentals. It is a strata, it's their building, it's their facility. They should decide if they want it or not, and if they don't want it, that's manage it. It's not our, you know, I'm sure we have to conform with complaints. Go to the RCMP. In their building, it's a stratified building. What's inside their strata is theirs, and we shouldn't have to manage, you know, complaints on whether they're allowed to do it or not to do it. That's their strata. And in our application process, when we get them to fill out an application, they have to have strata approval and a letter from the strata. That's basically all we need. If we don't get that, they don't, you know, it's not you know, they don't get a business license. So that's my opinion.
Well, it looks good. Like I said, I've looked through a lot of it, and sure, there's things that we're gonna fall through the cracks, but we've covered the majority of the basics, and it gives clear direction on what is allowed. So you won't find, like we have tonight, 50 variants coming to the table. So, and as long as council, the planning and development committee keep forward with the idea, if you have a bare lot, like I said, don't give any variances to.
Unless it's a weird lot. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's all I mean, I think it looks good. Like I said, we're dealing with an archaic document, and this is a vast improvement, and it should be easier for developers and individuals to look at and know exactly what size of dwelling and what setbacks are for these properties. So good job. Hopefully it goes through. Once it goes past the third reading after the public hearing tonight, and basically we can't adopt it until highway signs off. Is that correct?
It's the only negative thing I would say is that I now don't have any leg to stand on if I try and get away with some things, because I've gone through the whole document, and that's unfortunate, but
I don't really care. That was the purpose of it, was to make it that there was some uniformity within the community moving forward, and that council has better things to do than spend their time eating on variances. So just should make things more effective for everybody moving forward. I hope. I won't care. I'll be fishing. Okay, next.
You want
21.
Are you dealing with this resolution?
Oh, yeah, sorry. I read it through?
yeah.
No, I did. That the Planning and Development Committee recommended the District of Sycamore Council give the District of Council zoning bylaw number 1000/2022 second reading as amended third reading. Gordon, Brian, moved it. All in favor? Carried. Good job. I hope it doesn't stop.
Long time coming.
5H 21-083 DP 102 Martin Street.
Just talk.
We just did that. So housing strategy engagement. Who has the Steffi?
Sure.
Sarah? Go ahead.
All right, so this is just an update in follow-up to the survey that we did over the summer. So the survey opened on August 1st, closed on September 2nd. We made sure there were paper copies available throughout the community. So we did get a lot of paper copies sent in to us that were filled out. And we advised in the local papers, the website, social media, posters, and pop-ups. We also did a mail out with the utility billing as well. So we got 256 responses, which is great. That's more, I think about 70 more responses than we got on our housing needs assessment. So we're engaging more people, which is fantastic. So snapshot of the findings. So what we've shown here is everything that had greater than or equal to a 30% response rate. So the respondents, like who were they? 25%, so a quarter of them were seeking housing. 60% were year-round homeowners that live here.
Recording in progress.
Housing types that were preferred, pocket neighborhoods, which is pretty neat, duplexes and townhouses. And these three, of course, come after single detached houses, which was anticipated would be what people are mostly interested in. So the questions we asked about bylaws and policies, what people liked was a library of pre-approved, pre-stamped plans, allowing infill in all areas that are supported by the official community plan. In terms of tenure, people really liked the AHOP program through, I think that's that one, CMHC.
The
AHOP.
Yeah.
And then there's the rent to own program, cooperatives, housing co-ops. They liked party wall agreements, which is something we already have, but I guess people just don't know about it. And so they're not really using them. And stratas. Next slide. So we asked some questions about infill, accessory dwellings, and what people want to see in town center and highway commercial areas. So when we asked about infill, what people thought was that, we should allow infill in all low density areas that we surveyed. So that was basically like the tree streets, everywhere north of Parksville. So kind of like where the fire hall is, that area, and Rama Crescent, and Shuswap, between Shuswap and Riverside, where we've currently got single family dwellings. So people generally were like, all these areas could support infill. Types of infill, they responded that townhouses and smaller parcel sizes were preferable, and was closely followed by pocket neighborhoods. When we asked about accessory dwellings as a form of infill, people really like carriage houses and garden suites. When we asked about combinations of accessory dwellings with principal buildings, people really like the idea of having 2 suites associated with a single family dwelling. They also liked duplexes to be able to have suites. And when I see suites, I mean an accessory dwelling. So it might mean a carriage house as opposed to a basement suite. Townhouses with suites and triplexes with carriage houses. So these all represent mostly an increase in density of up to 4 units, where most of those additional units are hidden. So the property would still look like a single family or duplex. When we asked about the town center, the types of buildings people would like to see, top 3 choices were mixed use buildings that have, commercial below and residential above. Live work, which would be a smaller scale of a mixed use building. It would be, maybe like a 2-story building with an apartment above, whereas mixed use would have several stories of apartments or condos above. And also an urban pocket neighborhood. And what that was describing was an image of, you've got housing around a central laneway that was formed shared mixed use space for that community in the pocket neighborhood. Adjacent to the town center, so say like Finlayson or like Shuswap down to maybe around Martin Street roughly. Mixed use buildings, urban townhouses and apartments. There was an interest in highway commercial, similar but slightly different, mixed use, live work and apartments, as opposed to townhouses along our highway commercial. And that's all I have for you guys today. So we are still doing workshops with stakeholders and right holders right now, and we'll be reporting back to the housing committee in the beginning of October.
Comments?
How often does the housing committee meet?
Once a month.
But there's
Comment on this and good work, Sarah, on this. right now, as we move in the election and how we're looking at the planning, or as we're looking into this housing committee, you're not going to run anymore. So as we made a decision by council was to have yourself and Ryan and Malcolm on the committee. There's 3 members of the community that are on the committee, Brenda DeZell and Siobhan Rich. And so we're short one particular person now because it was supposed to be a 3-and-3 thing. So my outlook at this is I was trying to, and I talked to Sarah about this, is okay, where are we going with this right now? Because I want to get this committee so that it's functioning properly once again, but we're not going to be able to really delve into this thing until after the election based on who gets elected and how we're going to construct this particular committee. And so we'll have to wait until after the election and we're going to see where the chips, where they fall. Okay. And then we'll determine as to how this committee is going to be occupied by the community and the members of council. And so we're going to have to revisit it. So that's how I see it right now, because I was thinking, well, maybe we should try to rectify this ahead of time, but I think we're going to have to wait till after the election. So just saying. But I think that this particular committee is very important for the future of Sycamore. We want to keep going. So, but who's going to be sitting on it? I'm not quite sure until after the election.
Does staff not have basically the information that they need for the housing strategy? Like we know what we are going to allow to build. The zoning bylaws are now aligned with what you're going to allow to be built, like carriage houses and that at the time. So this housing committee, what do they have left to accomplish besides try to figure out how we're going to get government funding to pay for some of that offshoot stuff? Like, is there any more public input required to come up with what this housing strategy is going to be?
So the strategy does need to be recommended to council, and it will have recommendations to council around the ongoing role of the housing committee.
Okay.
So, and it does recommend an annual survey of key stakeholders in the community and reporting back to council regularly on implementation of the strategy. So a monitoring role in terms of monitoring how it's implemented and how effective it is. So there's that. And then there are recommendations for changes to the official community plan and the zoning bylaw. So like changes that, you know, the zoning bylaw is too far down the road for us to make those changes now. Plus they would require official community plan amendments. So yeah, there's still changes that need to be made, and we're not quite done with consultation, right? Because we're still speaking to stakeholders. So there'll be some revisions to the strategy before it's complete and can go to the committee and it can make its recommendation.
All right, that's all I asked. It was more was left for. Okay, any more comments on that? Okay, active transportation network plan engagement update. Who has this?
Yeah, this one's mine. Yeah, so we're doing the active transportation network plan and the Parks and Trails master plan at the same time. Both of them would be an inventory of what exists, and then with the active transportation network plan, we have Urban Systems that's helped us with the consultation, and then they'll prepare the report. And we'll probably look at December for the report. That report should have a list of projects that are the top priorities based on the engagement, and then we can go and seek funding for those projects. Yeah, most of the information that came back was what we expected, and a lot of it was what people would like to see, and it's essentially more pathways and more commuter type transportation, where people can, do their shopping or park or something like that from where they live. Yeah, on the left on this screen, you can see the different community engagement you had, and then the themes. Is there another slide? No. So yeah, you'll have to look in the report for the results. But yeah, basically it's pretty straightforward. Safety's a big concern. Getting across the highways is a big concern. Interesting with just where people responded to the survey. Most of them, were trying to cross highways and looking for a safe way to cross highways. Yeah, hopefully that we'll have that list of projects and then we can apply some funding for it.
Saw that? Oh, come on.
No,
Well,
even Stephanie.
one thing that I do notice about this is just the issue that we have of activity, which is an issue that's gone on since incorporation and before. There was never any forethought into how to get across Highway 97. It was discussed about putting in something under 97 going across at the border where Capel is. Rama was another discussion. And we got one traffic light to cross, and we got one pedestrian light by Parksville Street. That's really not enough clearly marked crossing. So, if anything comes out of this, there needs to be some connectivity that's created at more than one spot or two spots in the entire community. You're gonna have any growth here, like people want to walk, it's flat, it's easy to walk, so.
And across the channel as well.
Yeah, well, the channel will be, that's the highway bridge that, you could put park that pickup side on. Hopefully nobody gets hurt, so a pedestrian bridge, but those are things that are, like this survey study in time has been 2 years.
The active transportation?
Yeah, to get, but how long ago? We started on this some time ago. It was asked about, but it took a little while to get some legs underneath of it. Then it got legs and then it kind of moved, but it's been 2 years. So this wasn't it tied to the Parks and Trails survey somehow? Did they all kind of go together so that it could be a plan thought out about? Because if you move to Parks and Trails, which is our next thing, like you're seeing a lot of the same information again.
Yeah.
So they're strongly connected.
Yeah.
And the Parks and Trails been going on since about midterm of the first term that Gordon and I were elected. So it's been a long time. So it's all 2, 3, 4 years to get from talking about it to actually having this, and we still haven't created anything. So again, that was the vote out of Parksville, was the length of time that we want to spend talking about stuff as opposed to length of time actually just go out and do it. So these things are going to be important, especially if a Kevin Bird does his thing on the channel and Todd does his on Martin Street. But you do it out at 2 Mile, like that connectivity is going to become more and more important. So they need to actually get moved and advanced a lot quicker than what we're doing. So just my personal comment.
I just add to it, Jeff, that, yeah, the housing, the active transportation plan and the parks plan, yeah, they do go together, and they're all labeled in there about, areas that are concerns for crossing the highway and all that, in the active transportation plan. And the parks plan and trail strategy, it's coming together pretty good. I mean, I attended the online because it was COVID, but I attended online the active transportation meeting, and lots of good input from everybody. Campton was involved, and lots of really good good comments and stuff. So yeah, it's coming together. That's looking good. But you're right. We've got lots of concerns about crossing the highway and connectivity. And hopefully we'll be able to get some funding and do some more recreational trails.
So when you take all of this and you go back to our zoning map, as some of the things that are in this included in our zoning map, like are we ensuring? I see on the zoning map that where the rail trail is remained the same zoning over there, so that's a positive. Maybe the new CAO coming into the regional district will have some considerations for what's to move forward in the future. So, but as long as the zoning map has got some of this stuff included in it to move forward, and I mean, when you do your amendments to the OCP, I'm assuming that's part of the amendments to the OCP is to do with the trails and the productivity. From the active transportation and trail. So
I think one thing that might come out of this would be, it was, when how many parks are there and what is what are the size of the parks and, the total area of parks in Sycamoose, and we have a bunch of different ways we've designated them, and I think probably coming out is going to be a clear message. Hey, we have this many parks. This is what they're for. The community wants parks for these reasons, and looking at administration of them and identifying them and having them zoned properly or designated properly through the local government act, so we can make sure that they're available for people, or if council chooses to, if one's zone something else or designated something else and council wants to see a different use, then we can use this information to, at that time for that decision and say, hey, this is how that idea fits into the parks plan.
yeah, no, it's all good. Like, it's just the timelines that it's a very, very onerous movement forward. So anyway, it's a good job. It's done. So we've discussed the parks and trails, or do you want to make the presentation on it?
I have attached the 2-pager report on just the summary of the survey. But then with the Parks and Trails Master Plan, I would include the detailed report with each and every comments from the respondents. One of the interesting factors that every time there's a comment regarding parks and trails, they define it through the geographical location instead of the name of the park or a trail. For example, like the trail along, like crossing the highway and near the houseboat, or near the hook, or they have their own local geographical location and defining that park and trail. And one of the reasons is because we don't have a detailed inventory on like how many parks do we have, what are the names, what are the sizes, where are they located? And so, yeah, with this report, if we can include the inventory and the details of each parks and trails, that would be